what would you say to someone, just last couple questions before we wrap up, turning into a relational level? Let's say you're struggling with this as a woman and your boyfriend doesn't know, or your fiance does not know. How do you kind of break the news to him? Or, you're just in the beginning stages of dating. Like, at what point do you kind of bring this up, having, a latte over Starbucks? Oh, by the way, I've been wrestling in this particular, when and how?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I would say, hopefully, if you are pursuing a relationship and discerning marriage, there's most likely at the beginning of a relationship going to be some type of boundary conversation of chastity, of, hey, how far is too far physically, right, in this relationship? And that's usually where I would recommend to have a very, very high level introduction to the topic of pornography. I don't think that this is where you bare your soul, or you ask a lot of questions about their personal experience in these areas, because statistically, men, it's like something like 95 or above % of men, at least have experienced this, whether it's current or previous, and it's getting higher and higher for women. And so I would say, just saying, hey, we've talked about physical chastity and things like that. I also know that pornography and masturbation are huge struggles for men and women in our world. And I want to make sure that when we're talking about all of these areas of chastity as we pursue this relationship, I just want to see, like, do you have accountability in all these areas, so that as we continue to pursue our relationship and dating, you have another man in your life, mentor or whatever, that you can be turning to for any area in a relationship that could come up, and say, I have an accountability partner in all these areas as well. Just as an initial, and the reason why I always say bringing it up is it should be communicated that an expectation for you in your relationship is that pornography is not a part of it. I think I've had many women who, are at that engagement stage, whether they are engaged or about to be, and it comes up that their significant other has this huge addiction, or maybe they're like, wow, this is a huge addiction. And I've even heard the argument, well, hey, you never said anything like that this wasn't okay. Or maybe, they've had really bad formation and haven't been really taught the reasons why it's problematic or harmful. Instead, they've been fed the lies that the world tells them, that this is manly, or as a woman, like, this is empowering. And so to have just an initial conversation, to be on the same page, we agree this is not good. Do you have places to go to help you in these areas? And then I would say, as the relationship gets more serious, even towards engagement, would be, and I would say, talking with a spiritual director and a mentor to really navigate your specific situation, how long your struggle has been, where you're at in your relationship. I mean, if you're a freshman in college and you don't plan to get engaged until, for a few years, versus you're almost there, I mean, could very much change how much you share. For me, I chose to wait until I was engaged before I gave my pretty much the full backstory. And I did that because, for me, my story and my struggle it is very personal. It's me and the Lord. It's like, that's who up until that point, I wasn't married. And so that was who I was committed to, was Jesus. And so I didn't want a whole bunch of guys that I was dating to really know my full story. I wanted that to be saved for the one who was going to be my spouse. I wanted it to be protected, like he was going to protect that information for me. And so he had known a little bit. I mean, it did help that I was speaking about this. So he knew that this obviously was a part of my story. But I would say, depending on the level of your relationship and the level of your addiction, kind of taking time to share that with him when the time is right. Don't just date one. Here's my whole story. Here's my whole heart on a platter. Tell me everything that you've been struggling in. And then, within the relationship and dating, this always comes up. This is why you also want an accountability partner that is of the same sex. You don't actually want your accountability partner to be your significant other or your spouse. This can be very harmful in the relationship. I mean, this sin is not just a personal sin. No matter what you yourself or no matter what someone else tells you, you are always hurting another person, whether you're single or not. And so making sure you have an accountability partner who isn't personally affected by you falling into this can be really helpful to navigate some of those more sensitive areas. So making sure that they have that accountability and you do as well to help in that area would be all things I would share as well.
It's good stuff.